Hi people, so recently my Runcam Wifi Link VRX module arrived, and the last couple of days I was able to do some tests with it and just wanted to share the results with you. Here you can see all of the connections it has. You can power it by using a 6S LiPo battery. It's equipped with left-hand circular polarized antennas by default, or at least two of them. The other two are linear antennas. And here's the quadcopter I was using during my tests. It's equipped with the Runcam Wifi Link V2, and I changed the stock antennas with some Foxeer Lollipop left-hand circular polarized antennas. And what I also did is I upgraded my quadcopter with a GPS module so that I can have return to home functionality. And this time I decided to flash the Ruby FPV firmware to my Runcam setup because some of you asked for it in the comments, and I also saw the video of One Man Unmanned, which had very promising results. And here you can see the instruction manual for the flashing of the VRX module and the VTX module on the Ruby FPV website. And I have to say that these instructions were really good and helpful. So overall it took me only about half an hour to flash both the VRX and VTX module. And as you can see here, everything worked out fine. There was no additional setup that I had to do once everything was flashed. Here you can see the first startup. And in my tests before I used OpenIPC SBC ground station firmware, and Ruby has the big advantage of a much better user interface. As you can see here, we have different menus, and the navigation using the switch on the button on the Runcam VRX module works very well. Everything is thought out. My quadcopter also immediately paired after flashing. So here you can see some more footage of the Runcam VRX module in bright daylight. There's just one thing I didn't like about the Ruby firmware, which is that you cannot record the OSD. So the OSD view is very great, but I couldn't record it, and that's why lots of info is missing for you now in this video. This is my complete setup with the Fatshark HDO goggles connected via HDMI cable, and everything is powered with this 6S LiPo battery. Here's another image on the setup on the second spot. I tested it on two different spots, and the videos will follow now. So here is one of the first flights I did with the Runcam Wifi Link VRX and Ruby FPV firmware. This one was using the high performance presets, I think it's called. So there are like two different presets which you can choose in the Ruby firmware. One, the high performance preset, is more optimized for latency and less for image quality. And the high quality preset produces a better image with the cost of added latency. And what you can see right here was the high performance preset. As you can see, I was able to do some freestyling with it, but I have to say that the latency is still a lot higher than with other digital systems, like for example DJI. You can compare it about, maybe some of you have the DJI O3 Lite Air unit. If you set the O3 Lite to record 4K footage in 30 FPS, then the image becomes very laggy and the latency high. And this is about the way that this Ruby FPV Runcam system felt for me. Not as bad as that, but nearly. But I noticed that with the high performance preset, the latency was much shorter than with the high quality preset, which you can see now. Yeah, as you can see, the image is much clearer now because the bitrate is higher. One huge problem I had on this day was that the default camera settings are a bit too dark, or not only a bit, especially if I go towards the sun here. Everything on the ground gets really dark, so it was very hard for me to actually see what's on the ground. Right here it's okay, it's very much flyable, but you can see the latency is higher because I'm not that confident in flying like in the last clip with the high performance preset. And something I also notice is that the range seems to be a bit reduced while using the high quality preset. I tried to go a bit further here. On this day I still didn't have the GPS on my drone, so excuse that I didn't do a real long range test. Just tried going behind these trees here, but I was seeing nearly nothing. One more round. Yeah, you can see some glitches here. The breakup looks a little bit different than on OpenIPC firmware, and adaptive link or bidirectional link was also enabled during my tests, and that leads to multiple steps of the image breaking up. So if the signal gets weaker, the bitrate will first lower and the image gets a little bit more blocky, just like it's with DJI, for example. But as you just saw there behind these trees, if the signal gets really weak, it will still break up in a very similar way to OpenIPC SBC ground station firmware. Yeah, this is some footage from the next day. Here I increased the camera luminance or brightness, it was brightness, by a significant amount. I think I increased it from 45 to 75. It was really easy to do in the Ruby FPV menus. That's cool about the Ruby firmware. You can see that the image is not that clear here. It's hard to see little branches, and yeah, at this spot I tried to fly between all of those trees to get an idea of the range and penetration of the system. But I think this spot is great for this because there's not one huge obstacle where all of the signal breaks up behind, but rather many small trees which sometimes block the line of sight and sometimes not. And that's a really realistic use case scenario for most FPV pilots. And here you can also see if I go higher up, the image becomes a little bit clearer, and when I go down here, maybe you can notice that, yeah, right here for example, that the image gets more pixelated, and that's because of the bitrate dropping and the adaptive link that Ruby has. One thing to add is that this bidirectional or adaptive link is enabled by default in Ruby. That's very cool. Here was about the furthest point I was away with the Ruby FPV system, and now on my way back you can get an idea of where I was sitting at this location. Later there will be some footage included from the DJI O3 system. With this I could go all the way to the back. And here on this intersection, that's where I was sitting, right there. So I could go all the way down there, even behind the trees and not within my visual line of sight. That's pretty respectable. Here's another video. I think I might have changed something with the output power or minor changes in the bitrate here, but fundamentally it's still the high performance preset. I also tried playing around with the encoding H.264 or H.265, but I did not notice that much of a difference here. Image quality here is still pretty poor, and I couldn't really see anything more than with an analog setup. But the next clip will be me switching to the high quality preset on this spot, so that you can also see what happens then. I'm struggling a bit with the latency here going between those trees, because it's really not that good at this point. Now I'm close to me again, so the image gets clearer, going above these telephone or power lines. So if I'm higher up above the trees, there's absolutely no problem with the range. Here I tried out the GPS rescue feature to see if it works, because I just installed the GPS module this morning. As you can see, it worked and brought the quad back to my home location. So now I went for the bushes back there. That's the spot where also DJI O3 really struggles with signal breakup. And I wanted to see what happens with the Ruby FPV Runcam setup, and I lost the image and activated GPS rescue right here. Yeah, that's it for the high performance preset, and now I will land and switch it to the high quality preset to get a clearer image. So right here you can see the footage after I switched to the high quality preset. Everything already looks much better now. One thing I also notice is that it sometimes has trouble recording to the internal memory of the Runcam VRX, so there's already some breakup. At this point with the high performance preset there wasn't any real breakup, so the range also seems to be a bit reduced when using the high quality preset. What I wanted to tell is that while using the onboard DVR recording function, sometimes it displays a message like your controller had a CPU spike during recording to the internal memory. Maybe your SD card isn't fast enough. That can't be the case because I didn't record to the SD card but to the internal memory of the Runcam VRX. I didn't have any issues of this kind with the OpenIPC SPC ground station firmware. And these kind of controller CPU spikes tended to be a bit irritating because they induced huge lag in the image for a short period of time. maybe somebody can give a hint on how I can improve this. Yeah, now also with the high quality preset I'm going a bit higher up and further away, and I have to say that looks really good. You can enjoy the view here, no breakup. Within the visual line of sight. Yeah, I fast forwarded it a little bit because I was just doing the same round again. But at the end of this clip I'm doing one more test of flying between the trees with the high quality preset, which I also wanted to show you right here. Because earlier I said that I suspect with the high quality preset range and penetration are reduced when compared to the high performance preset. Let's test this one more time. Here the image already gets a little bit more blocky, and yeah, now I punched out because it got too bad and I couldn't get nearly as far as with the high performance preset. Overall, what I like about the system is the image quality, especially in high quality mode. It's already really good, as you can see here, but the latency really is an issue for me. I'm not able to confidently fly with this, with latency being that high. And also about Ruby, I really like the ease of use during installation and the great menus. So here's some footage from the DJI O3 system together with the DJI Goggles 2, just as a comparison in terms of image quality and range and penetration. Here I'm also going behind this bush. Bitrate drops significantly, but no real problems. As you can maybe see, with my flying style I'm much more comfortable with the DJI system because of the lower latency. I'm running automatic mode in this case, so channel and output power fully automatic. When going between the trees, the bitrate drops going towards the end, but there are no real issues. It's only in the yellow or orange, not in the red, which DJI displays when the signal is very weak. There's also a small pathway where you can go all the way around this area. I will try that later. Here's another field you can reach from my location where I was sitting. I also tried this with the Ruby FPV setup, and I could get to about 3/4 length of this field before my signal broke up completely. With DJI I could go all the way to the end. Here I'm even going in this area, but there the bitrate gets really weak. That's going behind the bush again, but this time I went around another time and tried to stay there or hover for a bit, and you can say that I could get the DJI bitrate down to 1 Mbit at this spot, So it's also dependent on how fast you are flying behind the obstacle and on the antenna orientation. In this clip I'm going even a bit further down the road here between the trees to see how far I can finally make it with the DJI system. And even at the end of the tree row I didn't have any real problems with the signal. One more time cruising between the trees because it's so much fun. Here the image got really blocky for a brief moment. Yeah, as you can see here, the DJI system can hold 50 Mbits for a really long amount of time. There's a leaf in front of my camera, but somehow I managed to save it. That was pure luck right there. And now I attempted to go all the way around the area following this little pathway where the signal will get very weak towards the end, even with DJI. But I could never have flown there with the Ruby FPV setup. Here it nearly becomes unflyable and goes into the red area. Between this bush right here I expected the signal to drop out completely, but that wasn't the case. I could still fly all the way around this whole area. That's really astonishing. And to sum it up, this short clip here shows how you can get the DVR recording from your Runcam Wifi Link VRX to a hard drive connected to the OTG USB-C port. You just go into the menu Media and Storage and select Copy Media Files to USB memory stick. Then it will take a while, and after that they are in a folder on your hard drive. So here are a couple of bullet points to sum this video up. First of all, the flashing process of the Ruby FPV firmware onto the Runcam hardware is very easy and straightforward with a very good installation guideline. Also, the usability of Ruby FPV overall is much better than my experience with OpenIPC. I especially like all the menu structures on the VRX firmware, and that there's nearly no initial setup required. The minimum latency I was able to achieve was about the same with Ruby as with the SPC ground station firmware. Overall, the OpenIPC or Ruby FPV latency is still way too high for some serious freestyle. I also was able to try it with the HD0 box goggles of a friend of mine. I hoped that it would be better with these, but it's not that much of a difference compared to my Fatshark HDO goggles, so I still continue to use these for my tests. And that's also the most important thing from my point of view for OpenIPC or Ruby becoming an actually usable system for most FPV pilots. That's the latency. It's still much too high. The image is fine and usable, but the latency, that's the thing hindering it from it becoming mainstream at the moment. Also, I noticed some problems, some minor problems with the DVR recording. CPU overloads were displayed as warnings, which led to stutters in the video feed, and it's a bit bad that there's no OSD recording possible, especially for videos like this. As a sort of constructive feedback, the image settings or camera settings for the IMX415 in Ruby FPV firmware appear a bit too dark. With OpenIPC they were better, and I could see everything on the ground much clearer, especially in the evening. The Runcam hardware, the DJI Wifi Link V2 and the VRX module already appear quite thought out, and yeah, they are good to use. And in my comparison with the DJI O3, the O3 was of course still far superior in terms of latency and penetration. I was able to fly much more confidently, but maybe that can change in the future. Like I said, the main thing hindering OpenIPC or Ruby FPV from becoming mainstream, in my opinion, is the latency at this point. Yeah, that's it for this video. I hope my tests gave you some interesting insights, and if you have anything else that you want me to try, just write it into the comments and I will try to realize it in the next weeks.